Everything you love was once a project. The apps you tap, the bridges you cross, the shows you stream. None of them happened by accident. Behind every one of them was a dream, a team, and a project manager trying to hold it all together. I'm Rick Morris, and this is AI Driven PM, the show where project managers stop playing games, embrace reality, and use AI to make dreams come true without burning out their people. Each week, we'll blend real world project war stories with practical ways to put AI to work. How to plan smarter, negotiate better dates, protect your team, and focus on the work that actually moves the needle. If you ever thought there has to be a better way to do this, then you're in the right place. Let's get to work. This is AI Driven PM. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of AI Driven PM. And by the way, thank you for watching another edition of AI Driven PM. Today, we're going to talk about the dangers of counting. I went on a huge personal development journey. In fact, I'm always on a personal development journey, but right around 2012 to 2014, I really started to dive deep into personal development. I joined the John Maxwell team. I had phenomenal mentors and coaches. And one of the teachings that I really remember was Paul Martinelli talking about the three R's. And he talks about in relationships, there's a danger to counting because once you start to count, now you're starting to keep track. And once you start to keep track, then generally what happens is like the three R's start to happen. And what I mean by keeping track is like, well, that's the third time they've done that to me, or that's the fourth time that's happened, right? And when you find yourself starting to do that, now you're counting. And then there's a natural kind of reaction to that which is the three R's. And the three R's first is resistance. So like first you kind of resist, or you start to like cut the person off a little bit, and then maybe then you go to the second R, which is revenge. And revenge is where you kind of start doing the same behavior as well. It's like, well, they're going to do that to me, I'm going to do it to them, or we start to kind of get into revenge. Well, because they did this, I'm going to do that. And then that leads to the third R, which is the most dangerous one, which is resentment. And once there's resentment, you really can't overcome it. Like that kind of relationship is over. And so, what was interesting though is because I'm so data driven and because everything I do with the metrics is like I count all the time, but I do recognize that in with clients or projects that have gone wrong, that I started to count those kind of bad items as well. And like the reason why I was counting is because I wanted to prove that they were wrong or I was right or whatever, right? And and it did lead to, there's certain clients that there's resentment for, and I'm sure they resent me at the same time. It's a natural portion of life, but it's interesting to kind of trace the roots back to where I started counting. So what does that have to do with AI and project management? Well, I think a lot of times those three R's are exactly what happens when we roll out a piece of technology and we don't manage the change management side of it. And so, you've rolled out a new tool, everybody nodded, they went through the training, everybody said, sure, we're going to do it. Now, 3 months later, nobody's using it. And what happened is the three R's. There was resistance, then there was revenge, and then there was resentment. And so why change initiatives fail is that we tend to focus on the what, right? It's a new tool, it's a new process, it's a new org structure, whatever. But like we're focused on what we're doing, and we ignore the who. So the people who have to change their behavior, and this is really true when we do like large scale rollout implementations. I just watched a ERP go live, and what happened was there's all this testing and training and all this other stuff that was going on internally, but not to the people who are going to be using the system. And by the time it was ready to go live, they were kind of an afterthought. And so there's that friction that happens because they weren't really brought into the process throughout or consulted throughout. So we focus on the what, we ignore the who, and then people don't resist change. They resist being changed. And here was kind of, I mentioned DISC in my last episode, and why DISC blew my mind, and what really changed me about understanding DISC and wanting to really be a master of that as I was a project manager is that you have those four profiles, the high D, high I, high S, high C, but 69% of the population is a high S. And high S do not like to have their routines changed. They will, but they love their routine. They love coming in, everything's exactly where it's supposed to be, and off they go. That's 69% of the population that don't really like to be changed. And so without that knowledge, you're like, oh, this is a cool new piece of technology, and off we go. I know that because that's who I was. Um, I had to, sit down and really get into the whys. So they don't resist change, they resist being changed. And there's also a change lever that comes with that. So people don't, won't change unless they hurt enough that they have to, or that they care enough that they want to. And so, having said all of that, what we really need to be focused on, especially if we start looking forward, right? Trying to not look backwards and do these administrative tasks and let AI handle that for us so that we can have time to look forward. And what we want to be looking forward to is avoiding the three R's. So again, resistance, that looks like passive non-compliance. Like, I'm just going to wait until this blows over. This is the latest fad. I've been through it, whatever, right? Revenge is kind of we say active sabotage. It's not really active sabotage, but it's just like, oh, I'm good. I'm going to show why this doesn't work. And just like me when I was saying with that client, oh, I'm going to track these metrics to prove I'm right in this situation. That's when you're in that revenge, like, oh, you're going to do this, I'm going to do that. And then resentment is that emotional withdrawal. That's where like, look, leadership doesn't care. Nobody's looking at this anyway. I'm not going to do anything about it. And maybe you had that one report that you were producing all the time, and yet you were still being asked questions about it. And so you went to the revenge stage, right? So first there was resistance, like, why am I even doing this? So then you went to that revenge stage, which is, you know what? I'm not going to publish the report this week, and I'm going to find out, who screams. And then there's that like resentment side of like, well, I was doing that for, 6 months and nobody ever read it. I haven't done it in 6 weeks. Nobody said anything. Right. So that's that stage. And so what's cool is you can, if you're aware of that, you can start to identify it. I do it all the time now. I'm like, uh-oh, I'm starting to count. I need to back off a little bit here and kind of change my mindset. And so it became a course correction for me. So what can trigger these three R's, right? So, change again is done to people and generally not with people. So we don't provide them a lack of clarity on why the change matters, or there's no input or voice in how the change happens. There's broken trust from past failed change initiatives, or leaders disappear, after the kickoff. And for all of my change management friends out there, they suffer the same fate as all of my project management, friends out there. Is that when we're looking at a large scale ERP initiative and they're looking at the cost, and not just that, I'm just using that as an example, but if you look at that large scale ERP initiative and the cost of the software and the cost of the configuration, the cost of the consultants, and man, that ticket price just goes. And then what do they cut? The project management and the change management. Quite frankly, outside of the actual software, what's the most important is that we know what's going on and people know how to use the software, right? So we always cut training, we cut change management, we cut project management. Those are all the quality factors because we feel like we got people internally that can do it, or it's not that big of a deal. So when we're starting to look at what's happening in the AI world with AI change management, AI tools are moving so fast. I mean, I feel like the things that I'm sharing here in this podcast could be obsolete, within a year. I don't know, right? And teams, though, there's more personal feelings with AI than anything else because people are feeling like they're being automated out of relevance, right? Again, I can't tell you how many times I answer the question when people are like, "Oh, is AI going to replace project management?" And hopefully you remember my mantra. And if you've never heard it before, I say, AI is not going to replace project managers, but you will be replaced by a project manager who knows how to leverage AI. And so, if we don't manage the people side, then the AI adoption is going to fail, even if the tools are great. Like we could have the coolest tools in the world, but if we're not managing the change management side of that, it's going to fail. So that leads me to today's focus. I want you to diagnose where your change initiative is on. Are you in the resistance? Are you in revenge? Are you in resentment spectrum? Where are you in that? Maybe you haven't started. That's great. And then we're going to use AI to design a change management strategy that builds ownership, not compliance. Now, again, for my change management fans out there, I am not trying to push change management out of a job at all. And hopefully we have a change management person we're working with in order to do that. But for situations where there isn't a change management person, or this is, again, something that we've really got to focus on, it's really good to be aware of how to design and change engagement strategy, and make sure that we're building proper ownership. Our non-negotiable experiment this week is we're going to assess our team's readiness and design a strategy to move them from resistance to ownership. Again, notice I said, resistance, because once we hit revenge, things are starting to get there. And once we hit resentment, it's tough to come back. I can tell you, in my career, I did a lot of project rescues. And one of the tools I supported, which I believe is one of the best tools on the market, was CA's Clarity. And I felt it was one of the best tools on the market because I could pretty much do anything with it. Man, I could automate any process you could imagine in that thing. It was so configurable. But what would happen is I would go into these organizations and I would see a clear path on how to solve it. But there was such a negative connotation to the tool already that nobody would really care to jump on it or redo it. So they were all in that resentment phase. And so even though we could come in and rebuild it, redesign it, and deploy it the way it should have been deployed, and train and do all the change management, the team was already gone. The resentment was already there. And so most of those initiatives never really took off like they should. And so I had to transition my business from rescue to implementation because it was trying to overcome the resentment gap was nearly impossible. So we're going to listen to our friends from Centric Consulting. We'll be back with the dual screens up, and we're going to start putting some prompts into AI next.
In today's economy, leaders are looking for a different kind of consulting partner. A partner that will work with you to understand your culture, technology, and employees. A partner that will develop the solutions you need, not the solutions they know best. For us, it's never been about simply checking a box. Since we were founded in 1999, Centric Consulting has established a reputation for solving its clients' toughest problems by delivering flexible, tailored, cost-efficient solutions, all centered on the right outcomes for each business. It's all part of our mission to deliver an unmatched experience you won't get anywhere else. Centered on what's best for you, Centric is ready to guide you on the journey ahead.
And we are back. Now it's time to start putting some prompts into our AI tools to help us with this change readiness and engagement diagnostic. Now, again, this is your non-negotiable experiment this week. You can go to pmthatworks.com. You can find all of these prompts, and you'll be able to cut and paste and directly do this. So here is our first prompt. You are an organizational change management consultant. First, ask me 5 to 7 questions about the change initiative, the people affected, their current behavior and sentiment, past change history, and leadership engagement. Then provide a diagnostic and strategy that answers, based on what I've described, where is the team on the change readiness spectrum? So are they in awareness, understanding, acceptance, adoption, or advocacy? What signs of resistance, revenge, or resentment am I seeing? What are the root causes of resistance? Is it a lack of clarity, fear, broken trust, no input, poor execution? What change management strategy should I use? Is it communication, co-creation, small wins, leadership modeling? And what specific actions should I take in the next 30 days to shift sentiment and build ownership? How do I measure progress and change adoption beyond number of people trained? So that's going to be that portion. And then the change initiative here is we're rolling out a new project management tool to replace spreadsheets and email threads across the organization that affects 50 plus people across 5 departments. Our stated goals are better visibility into project status, reduce meeting time spent on status updates, and improve cross-functional collaboration. So what I'm going to do is first, I'm just going to put in these first prompts so that AI starts to ask us some questions. And then I've built a little scenario anticipating what those questions are going to be. I'm just going to cut and paste those directly in as well. So to finish it, my current situation is that we're 3 months post rollout. 60% of the people are still using spreadsheets alongside Monday.com. So they're doing double work. Teams complain that Monday.com is too much overhead and doesn't fit how we work. 2 departments are actively hostile, and they call it Rick's surveillance tool. Leadership announced the rollout, but hasn't been visible since. And training was a 90-minute session, and there's not been any ongoing support. So what's happening here, and how do I fix it? So again, you can start to see the difference here between ChatGPT and Claude. So ChatGPT just kind of dumps the questions out here. It's awesome. I do like how it says provide as much detail as possible. After your answers, I'll map it out. Claude uses this interview technique, which I kind of like. So what is the change initiative? It is a system or technology change. We'll go to the next one. How far are we in or post rollout? How would you describe the current sentiment? We would say mixed, some on board, some resistant. How has leadership been showing up? Largely absent. What's the organization change history? We'll say, mixed, some wins, some failures, and it's going to start to go to work. And then I want to provide it here. It says 2 more answers. Were the people most affected given any input to the design of this change? And what specific behaviors or signals are you seeing that concern you most? So now into Claude, I'm just going to put the rest of that detail in. So ChatGPT says, based on that, we're in the change readiness stage. Most of the organization sits between understanding and acceptance. People know the tool exists. They lack belief in value. They lack confidence in how work changes. So double entry shows mental rejection. People protect old habits while testing the new system. And then hostile departments sit at awareness only. They know the change exists, but they reject intent and value. So it gives you a little bit of evidence. Now let's see what signs this comes up with. So ChatGPT says signs of resistance, revenge, and resentment. Resistance, people continue spreadsheet tracking, workflows stay unchanged. Monday becomes a reporting layer rather than a system of work. Great insight there for sure. Resentment, it says labeling the tool as surveillance signals distrust of intent. People believe the tool serves leadership control instead of team productivity. So we didn't do a good job of what's in it for you, like in rolling that piece out. Revenge, double work creates visible friction. Teams signal frustration through inefficiency. Behavior communicates disapproval without open confrontation. It goes into some root causes, and then we'll see what actions it comes up with. I want to jump over to Claude here for a second. So it says it's stuck again between understanding and acceptance. Resistance is giving us double tracking. Resentment, it calls out the surveillance tool. Early revenge is the act of hostility, so that's good. So change engagement strategy. It leads with 3 moves in this order. So Claude says co-creation with resistant departments. So do not push more training or communications into the hostile departments. Great idea. Go in and listen first. Facilitate working sessions where they redesign their Monday.com boards to match how they actually work, and give the ownership of the configuration. This is the only credible counter to the surveillance narrative. When they build it, it stops being yours. Really good understanding there. I think that's a great counter move for that. Move 2 is activate the 40%. So identify 2 or 3 visible, respected people per department who are using it effectively. Make them peer coaches, not ambassadors. Peer-to-peer adoption is faster and more credible than top-down instruction. Document 1 concrete time save or meeting eliminated per team as a proof point. So again, a great suggestion of a metric of things we can start to track to start to see how adoption is happening. And then specific actions in the next 30 days. And then measuring progress beyond headcount. Let's see what we came up with here. So single source compliance. ChatGPT says board activity rate, meeting reduction, issue resolution speed, cross-team visibility, sentiment shift. Not bad. Claude says weekly active users versus total. Nice. Ratio of projects versus tracked in Monday versus spreadsheets. I'd probably go with that one too. Number of status update meetings eliminated or shortened with document monday.com is the reason. It also pulls up sentiment metrics, trust and leadership metrics. So I didn't see anything here in ChatGPT about trust or leadership. I really like Claude saying number of times leadership references monday.com data in formal settings. I think that's a really good metric and a great call. So again, ChatGPT talks to me in bullet points because I like that. Claude still kind of learns me a little bit, but I do like how Claude gives you a bottom line. It says this is not a training problem or a tool problem. It is a trust problem with a workflow mismatch layered on top. So I couldn't agree more. Hopefully that gives you a little bit of insight of like using a prompt like that can help you identify key things or even actions that maybe we should then go and take. And again, a thinking partner. So you can come back now from this response and go, well, I don't like this or I like that. And now you're actively collaborating with a thinking partner that's going to help you design a strategy and an activity to go through, the next piece. So I'm going to cut and paste this whole next prompt in here, kind of skipping the question portion. Again, just trying to keep the podcast 30 minutes or less. So you're a behavioral psychologist. This next one is a resistance root cause analyzer. So you're a behavioral psychologist specializing in organizational change. Ask me 3 to 5 questions about specific resistance behaviors, what people are saying or not saying, and what happened leading up to the resistance. Then analyze the root causes by answering what type of resistance am I seeing? Is it passive, active, avoidance, or sabotage? What are the underlying fears or concerns driving the resistance? So fear of job loss, loss of control, incompetence, increased workload. What unmet needs are people expressing through resistance? Is it clarity, input, support, or trust? What past experiences are influencing current resistance? Is it previous failed changes, broken promises? And how do I address root causes rather than just symptoms? So the resistance behaviors I'm seeing is that people say yes in meetings but don't change behavior. Teams are vocal and slack about how stupid the new tool is, and stupid's in quotes. One manager told their team, just keep using the spreadsheet, this will blow over. Several people submitted IT tickets asking to be removed. Participation in training sessions were poor, lots of multitasking, minimal questions. And one senior engineer publicly said in a meeting, this is just another fad. Remember when we tried the previous tool? So what's really going on here? So that's the prompt. We'll put it into both and we'll see what they come up with. So Claude starts saying, what type of resistance are we seeing? Is it passive resistance? Yes. In meetings, no behavior change. Active resistance is the Slack complaints. Avoidance is the poor training participation. And sabotage is the manager who told the team to keep using spreadsheets. So their underlying fears and concerns is fear of demonstrated incompetence. So the low training engagement and multitasking are textbook responses to anticipated failure. So they've kind of already started thinking about failing before you've even gotten through training. A fear that the change signals something about their future, right? That was one of the biggest change resistors I had to overcome when I was putting in like clarity in those types of systems was, oh, this is just Big Brother, tracking us so that they can, reduce the staff or find out if we're being productive or not. Fear of workload increase without compensation. So again, you're increasing what I have to do, but you're not paying us any. That's the old Office Space line, man. Initech, ships a few more lines of code, I don't see another dime, right? If you've ever seen that movie, it's exactly that quote. So unmet needs are need for input and co-authorship, need for competence and psychological safety, need for trust and follow through, and need for a manager who's aligned. So again, just trying to give you some ideas and some things to try to analyze where you are in your change management strategy. We'll do one more just so we can kind of see what that looks like. So this one would be kind of that co-creation and ownership strategy. So in one of the suggestions in our first prompt, it was like we need to co-create a space with a resisting department. So this prompt can help us do that. So you're a change management facilitator specializing in participatory change. Ask me 3 to 4 questions about the change initiative, who's effective, and where I could invite input or co-creation. Then design a co-creation strategy answering where in the change process can I invite people to shape, how, and not just accept what. What decisions can I delegate or open up for input? How do I identify and empower change champions with resistance groups? What pilot or experiment can I run with the team, not to the team, to build ownership? And how do I communicate that input is generally valued and not just performative listening? So that change initiative, again, as we're rolling this out, our constraints is the decision to use this tool is already final, and I can't change that tool choice. But what I can change is how we configure it, what the training approach is, what the rollout pace is, and the governance of it. So that's what we want to put in here. We'll see what our tools suggest. So our co-creation says that we need to reframe first. So before the strategy, the constraint is an asset, not a liability, if you name it honestly. So the worst version of participatory change is pretending people have input they do not have. So beautiful, again, guidance here. ChatGPT is talking about workflow structure, board templates, views and dashboards, update cadence. Basically says open several practical decisions to team influence like board ownership, required fields, automation rules, permission structure, things like that. So it's not being dictated down to them how they work. Pilot experiment with teams. It gives you kind of a week out there. Communicate genuine input. Let's see. Claude says decisions to delegate, kind of the same thing. Fully delegate to teams. Update frequency, check-in norms. Who's the board owner? I agree with all those. And then the identifying and empowering change champions and resistant groups. So, it basically gives you an idea of who to look for, how to invite them, and what to do it. So very, very powerful things if we just simply ask and frame it. And that's what we're trying to do with these prompts. So to wrap up this episode, we've been talking about resistance, revenge, resentment equals systems of change done to people and not with people. And your root causes of that is either fear or lack of clarity, broken trust. Maybe they don't have a voice into the process. And what we want to be able to do is some co-creation, some change management strategies, and some small wins to help build ownership. Remember, your non-negotiable experiment from this episode is to run the change readiness and engagement diagnostic on a current or recent change initiative, take one action from that, and invite co-creation or address a root cause of any kind of resistance that may be happening. And what to notice is, does giving people that voice shift the sentiment, even if the change itself is really non-negotiable, right? And do you discover root causes maybe that you haven't seen before? All right, next episode, we're going to talk about coaching first and being a PM second, and why facilitation is one of your most valuable skills, especially in the AI era. We hope you'll join us on the next episode of AI Driven PM. I'm Rick Morris, and this has been AI Driven PM. Keep protecting your people, telling the truth, and making dreams come true.